Greetings and bienvenue, Midnight Crew. Thank you for returning to this broadcast, and welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
Saw a thread on here earlier about someone asking about traveling to other countries or places in your homeland. I figured I'd start a thread about those of us whom have traveled and experienced things you found creepy. If you paid any attention to the thread I mentioned, I'm the guy who ended up traveling alone for 5 years all over the US, Canada, and Mexico. Let's start with one I remember extremely vividly, during the 3rd year of my travels. At this point, I'm in Wisconsin heading toward the border with Canada to go see a few friends of mine. Should mention that throughout the 5 years I traveled primarily by foot, had been walking the majority of the day, and dusk was starting to appear. Decide to try and hitchhike to the next town and hopefully find some cover. It looked like it was going to pour. A beat-up older model Chevy stops. The driver looks like a guy in his late 40s. He asks me where I'm headed, tell him the next town over. He tells me to hop in the back and he'll give me a lift. Do as he says. And soon I am rolling down the road enjoying the chance to rest my legs and the nice cool breeze. About an hour passes and we arrive in this tiny one-road town. Literally every building is on the single road heading through it. Hop out, thank the old guy, and he hesitates before speaking. Look, son, I don't know who you are, but if I were you, I'd keep going and not stop here. Guy even offers to give me a lift to the next town over where he's headed, but I decline because I'm hungry and want to sleep in a real bed for once. He shrugs, then warns me to be careful, then drives off without a look back. I think nothing of it, and head into the closest diner-looking place to ask about a hotel and grab a bite to eat. Walk in, a little bell chimes, and quite literally everyone in the place stops, turns, and stares at me like I'm a piece of trash or something. Think nothing of it. When you travel for as long as I had, you realize all small towns are like that. Unbuckle my pack, sit it in an empty booth, and take a seat. Sit there and wait for someone to come take my order as I feel all these eyes boring into me, but I want a burger and some sweet soda. Finally, after about 10 minutes, a frumpy-looking older woman, maybe in her 30s, walks over to my table and just looks at me. I look up at her and smile, but she's looking at me like she wants to take her pen and stab me with it. She says, "Well, what do you want?" Damn lady, don't gotta be rude. Look over the menu since she wants to be an ass, take my time with it, then finally ask her what she recommends. She rolls her eyes and huffs, then says that their specialty stew is good. I want nothing to do with their specialty, so I go with a good old-fashioned hamburger. She stands there for a few moments, then finally writes it down and heads back to put it on the order pile. This entire time, the diner is silent, save for the sounds of the kitchen and some honky-tonk on a shitty radio. Look around and people are still eyeballing me like I'm the Antichrist. Decide to try and be nice and wave to a few of them, get the stink eye for my troubles. Burger comes up. She slaps it in front of me with my drink and walks off. I decided, fuck this and check it before I eat because these people are weird. Burger checks out, nothing weird on it, and everything looks fresh. Meat is done. Start wolfing it down so I can get out of there ASAP. Turns out to be a pretty good burger. Get up, pay for my food, and ask the waitress if there's a motel in town. She grumbles something under her breath, then points down the street at a horribly dilapidated brick building. Say thanks, and power walk my ass out of the diner and down to the building. There are a few people out on the street and they all give me the same treatment as the diner. Got it, you people really hate strangers. Decided I'll sleep 6 hours and head out of town before the sun comes up because I feel like I've worn out what little welcome I had. Get to the hotel. It's in worse shape up close than I could tell from the diner. No cars in the parking lot, shitty pool that looks like it hasn't been used in forever, and the sign is missing letters. My brain is screaming that I should just keep walking and find a spot out in the woods to camp, but I really want a bed. Walk into the lobby, and the fattest man I have ever seen is sitting behind a desk, watching some old black and white TV show. Looks up at me. One eye is nothing but milky while the other was green. He labors out of the chair he was in, huffs over to the desk and asks what the hell I want. This town is really shit on customer service apparently. I ask for a single bedroom for one night. He snorts and says they only have twin rooms available because all the singles are reserved. You lying shit stain. You just want more money. Of course I don't say this, but I grit my teeth and say screw it, I'll take one. Pony up the cash, get a beat-up old key, and soon find myself in room 2102. The whole room smelled like old meat and mildew. Wonderful, I got the fragrant suite. Toss my gear on the bed, lock the door while putting a chair under the doorknob, check under the beds and in the closet, then decide to take a shower. Guess what? Shower doesn't work. Call the fat man. He says maintenance will take care of it tomorrow. Doesn't help me tonight, you lazy slob. Hang up, dig through my pack for the baby wipes, and do a field bath. Relax for a bit, channel surf pointlessly, then end up passing out. Wake up sometime during the night to the sound of the room's door handle jiggling ever so slightly. Reach into my pack and grab the revolver I keep for emergencies, then tiptoe over to the peephole. Look through it and see the fat man standing against the far wall, with a group of about 5 men crowding around the door and talking quietly but very animated. One of them says something about just busting it and taking care of the guy since he's asleep. Sorry fellas, but the guy is awake and looking right at you. The fat guy jerks and pulls out a walkie, listens to it, then gets a frozen look on his face. Gestures towards the door hurriedly and mumbles about the guy being awake and standing on the other side of the door. The 5 guys stop and slowly look towards the peephole. Then one of them pulls a taser out while the others draw knives. Start thinking of what I could do when one of the guys closest to the door grabs the handle and starts really pulling on it, trying to pull it open. Starts cussing at the fat guy about the key not working and that he won't get as big a cut for this one because of it. At this point I say screw this. Throw on my clothes, shoes, and pack and head to the window to see if I can get out that way. Want to guess what happened? If you guessed that the window was that kind they put in psych wards to keep people from opening them, you'd be right. Start silently praying to whatever deity comes to mind that they let me get out of here. About that time something hits the door hard, then again and again. Happens a few more times before an axe head pops through the door, but the axe gets stuck. I mentally say fuck this, aim the revolver at the window, and squeeze off 3 rounds to weaken it so I can jump through. Lucky for me, they actually break it completely out. The guys in the hallway start freaking out, and I can hear other axes hitting the outside of the door. I am not ending up in someone's meal. I jump out of the window and hit the ground awkwardly, messing my left ankle up, but I bite down and take off running towards the woods closest to the motel. I got about halfway across the parking lot before I heard someone shout from the broken window, "He's heading towards the trees." This only spurs me on more. I hit the tree line and immediately started heading towards the town's exit, keeping a decent amount of trees between myself and the road. Eventually I have to stop and catch my breath and let my ankle rest, and I take the time to reload the 3 spent rounds in the revolver, making sure to put the shell casings in a pocket so I don't leave them as a marker to be followed by. That's when I heard the sirens. The closer they got, the better I could see that they were leading a couple trucks with people in the beds of them with spotlights looking through the woods. The police car was using its side-mounted light to do the same thing, so I started carefully making my way deeper into the woods so as to not be spotted as easily with the lights. The closer they get to my relative position, the slower I go, until they're about even with where I am. I freeze up behind a tree and hold my breath, waiting for them to pass me by so I can continue. After what felt like ages but was more than likely just 10 or so seconds, the procession keeps going, and my asshole unclenches, and further into the woods, I limp. I do keep the road to my right so I can somewhat keep my bearings, and for about 30 minutes I keep limping. Through the trees I see lights heading back my way, so I stop and crouch down behind some brush and fallen trees to see if it's the convoy looking for me, or just a normal motorist. Nope, it's the murder convoy. Same thing as last time. Cop car up front with its spotlight stabbing out and the trucks with their hillbilly asses doing the same with their lights. I wait about 10 minutes after they pass, then head out as fast as I could move. Continue like that for 2-ish hours before I see headlights coming at me, and instinctively I duck because who knows if these are murder hillbillies. They're moving slow like they're looking for something or someone, so my mind decides they're part of the assholes back at the town. For some reason, I get really pissed off and decide I'm going to find out what the hell is going on. Start making my way toward the road and get there. The vehicle, a truck, still a good 80 yards away from my current position. I fish around for a rock or something heavy and wait for it to pass me, thinking I'll throw it. They'll stop to check if they hit something, and then I'll pounce. In hindsight, it was a shitty plan, but I was pissed and in pain. Truck pulls up the road, gets parallel to my position, and I chuck a rock I'd found, maybe the size of an adult male's fist, and hit the truck square in the passenger side door. Truck screeches to a halt, and I hear a younger guy start cursing about stupid-ass deer hitting him. Guy gets out, walks around to the passenger side, pulls out a lighter, and starts looking at the damage. Taking that as my cue, I quietly walk up behind him, cock the hammer on the revolver, and tell him if he moves, it'll be the last thing he does. Guy literally starts shaking and pisses himself, then says that I can have the truck as long as I don't hurt him. I tell him that they're the ones that are trying to hurt me, and you can see his body tense. He asks me if I'm talking about the town I just left, and I say of course I am. He says if I let him get back in the truck, he'll drive me to the town he was coming from. I laugh and ask him if he thinks I'm stupid, but I get no answer. I tell him to stay there while I get in the truck. I hop in and look over at him, and this guy is as white as a ghost. He literally begs me not to leave him out there. I ask him why, and he says the town he was going to pass through farther up the road doesn't like strangers, and that people passing through alone tend to disappear around that area. I don't know why I believed him, but I checked his glove box to make sure he didn't have a gun in there, then told him to get in and keep his hands where I could see him. Dude literally almost jumps into the passenger seat, buckles in, and once I've got the truck turned around, he tells me to floor it, which I happily obliged. While we drive, I ask him questions about the town. Apparently, they'd had a couple of teen girls got murdered there in the early 50s, and they'd really taken a hate towards anyone out of town and tended to try and run them off as fast as they could. Families, not so much, but if it was someone traveling alone, they got the worst. Also told me that everyone in that part of the state knew to stay clear of the place when it was getting dark. I mentally kicked myself about the warning the old man gave me. Anyways, we keep driving, and the guy is giving me directions towards one of the bigger towns because, in his words, you're probably not going to want to stay in the smaller towns round here. Guy didn't know how right he was. About an hour into the drive, we saw the lights of a fairly decent-sized town, which made me happier than I could express properly. I pull up into a truck stop and hop out and look at the guy and apologize for what I did. Like a champ, he waves it away and said he'd have done the same thing in my shoes, then gives me about $80 in cash to catch a bus as far away from here as you can. Mate, you don't have to tell me twice. He drives off in the direction we came from, and I head inside to see about getting a bus ticket somewhere far from Murder Hillbilly Central. Sadly, I don't have any info about the town. I don't remember the name or the area of Wisconsin it was in, except that it was the Upper Peninsula. One more before I pass out for the night. I'll share the creepy-ass night I spent in the Mexican desert. First time I ever went to Arizona. This would have been halfway through my first year of travel. The first 6 months had been easy. I'd couch surfed with people I knew or people I talked to online, so I didn't have too much experience with camping. Had left a friend's house 2 days before this, caught a ride with a few people, and was maybe 40 miles north of Flagstaff. Had been walking all day, and somewhat into the night, finally decided to call it a night and hiked into the desert a little to stay away from the road. Found a nice little rock formation, set my little one-man tent up, crawled inside, and promptly fell asleep. What felt like a few minutes later, my eyes popped open, and I felt my body tense up, like my senses knew something was wrong. I laid there and listened, and that's when I heard some coyotes wandering out the tent. Coyotes, cool, nothing scary, let's go back to sleep, body. My body wasn't having any of it. Said screw it, and laid there looking up at the ceiling of the tent and listening to the coyotes paw around the tent. Then they stopped, like they'd been frozen. Seriously, no nose from them or anything, which I found strange. That's when I heard something else moving towards the tent. It sounded like something being dragged across the ground, sort of like what a full trash bag sounds like if you, well, drag it across a surface. The coyotes start going ballistic then, yipping and barking and growling. Then something hit the side of the tent. Once, twice, 3 times, then a 4th. Meanwhile, the coyotes are getting louder and more frantic. Then one of them screams. Not a human-sounding scream, kinda like a dog yowling in pain but much higher pitched. I might have shit myself right then. The rest of the pack is going nuts, and from the sound of it, they rushed whatever had come up. The ensuing fight was both quick and extremely brutal by the sound of it. Whatever was fighting the coyotes was not going easy on them, and the coyotes were not backing off, which I thought was weird, because I always thought coyotes would run away from a threat. In the span of 5 minutes, the fighting stopped, and I strained my ears to listen. Nothing. No noise whatsoever. Not any labored breathing like you would expect to hear after a fight like that. No dying sounds. Nothing. That is, until I heard the dragging noise again. At this point in my travels, I hadn't picked up the revolver yet, but I did have a hatchet that I used for woodcutting and as a deterrent, so I reached over and slid it out of the hoop on my pack and gripped it tightly. The noise got closer and closer, then stopped about 10, maybe 15 foot away. I didn't hear anything for another 5 or 6 minutes, then something hit the side of the tent, and I almost shit myself. Something hit it a few more times, then things went quiet again. Except I'm pretty sure if anyone would have been there, they'd have heard my heart beating furiously away. The dragging noise starts back up and moved around my tent slowly, keeping its distance at about the 10-15 foot mark, and every now and then something would hit the sides of my tent. This all continued until about 45 minutes before sunrise. Then the dragging noise moved away until I could no longer hear it. I lay in my tent until the sun had been up for a good 3 hours, then slowly unzipped it and stepped out. It was a bloodbath. Parts of coyote were everywhere, and I noticed that the things that had been thrown at my tent were chunks of coyote meat. It looked like someone or thing had ripped the pack apart and just tossed the halves willy-nilly all over the place. All except the heads. The heads were arranged on a smaller rock directly across from the tent opening, their faces towards the opening. I looked around, saw coyote tracks but nothing else, said screw this, grabbed my bag and left the tent. That's all that happened. I ditched the tent because I didn't want to carry it around with me, and I hitchhiked as much as possible for the next few days to get as far away from there as possible.
Ditching and not leaving the campsite as you found it, prick. Just bag it up and chuck it away.
Be me. Be a graffiti artist. I love to travel to do graffiti all around the world, traveling during the early 2000s for a while in Switzerland. Be somewhere southwest in a rural area in the French part of Switzerland. Drive around with the car, through some small villages. Realize I could actually just do some graffiti on the main routes I am mostly driving on. Thinking about how to prevent some villagers or even the police from seeing me. There was a police station right at the main route. Every one of these hillbillies would immediately find it pretty suspicious that some urban townsman with freshest streetwear is wandering with a bag in the middle of nowhere. Light bulb above head, .jpg. Go to shop for military supplements in a greater city. Buy some camouflage clothing, a backpack, and a really big camouflage coat where you even cannot see the backpack full of cans under it. I still maybe need some kind of mask, so nobody can identify my face. Mask a gas 10.00 CHF. Screw it. Why not? I even protect myself from breathing paint into my lungs. Drive back the next day to some village that was near my destination. Put on camo outfit and gas mask. Start hiking in the fields. Feel like some kind of spec op. The coat makes me near invisible. At least I thought. Apart from what I actually plan to do there, the nature here is really beautiful. See some flowers. Decide to take some with me because they look really fancy. Suddenly realize some woman is watching me the whole time, picking some flowers in my ridiculous outfit. Oh shit, oh shit, oh shit, .gif. Decide to run away as fast as I can and hide somewhere. Screw this shit. I go back to the city. Maybe I come back another time. Time passes. come back a long time after, again to that spot, do my work, yada yada. Since then, I didn't hear anything anymore about the place I was, also didn't care, but then... It's 2013. See thumbnail of an article from dailymail.co.uk. Some guy in the woods with a camouflage coat. What the hell, isn't that me? Read the headline. Police hunt for mysterious figure. Are you fucking kidding me? They are still looking for the artist after all these years. Read the article. Loyon. Woods of malls. Search for location of malls. Do research on this whole topic about Loyon. My face when that was one of the villages I passed many years ago. My face when I'm the guy in the picture. My face when I'm the spurg with the gas mask picking up fucking flowers in the woods. My face when I'm the urban legend they all talk about. My face when I'm ghost of malls. My face when I'm Le Loyon.
When I was a kid, my great-grandmother told us stories of her father when she was little in the 1920s. He was a car thief, killer, and all-around psychopath that would do jobs for the Irish, Greeks, Italians, who he hated to no end and had killed plenty of, and the various other scumbags out of Philly, New Jersey, and New York. He was from up in the Poconos. They were these Pennsylvania Dutch hillbillies. He used to go with his sons to steal cars and kidnap showgirls to bring them back to his shack up in Monroe County, Pennsylvania. I believe her. Her brother that I knew said she had no idea what kind of shit the old man would go off and do. He used to do the broke-down scam on people, kill the men, throw the bodies off into the bottom of ravines and keep the women. There's a reason Granny had 35 brothers and sisters. There are still some of the cars he decided to keep for himself and just rode around until they fell apart. Then he would just leave them in the woods. There are hundreds of various old cars rotted away to almost nothing up there. Or there were till my one uncle got smart in 2001 and went up there to scrap everything and made $50,000 off of the pieces that didn't rot by selling them to collectors that needed pieces to restore these old cars from then. The messed up thing is, as bad of a man as he was, their house had a raid on it by the wood devils and baby eaters in 1925, where these giant hairy things tore the house apart one night, and it caught fire from the thing throwing shit everywhere and biting the heads off of little children. The old man and the oldest sons shot the shit out of several of the things, told the older boys to get the guns out of the hiding spots that hadn't burned, and killed every one of the things they could find in revenge. All of her surviving siblings agreed on the story the last time I saw them in '99.
Holy shit, any more stories about the wood devils?
Yeah, they are big. My great-great-grandfather was a big dude. Not fat, big, 6'7", poor trash muscle, vicious, a murderer, and he broke a horse's neck with a punch in 1889 for trying to kick him. I've seen pictures of him when he was 40, and he was terrifying. Like you see this guy in a picture, and you thank God he is dead. These things made him look like a Save the Children skeleton. The old man built his house to be a fortress, since he was an evil bastard, as prevention against other evil bastards that might want to get back at him. He had murder holes that he built into the ceiling, the woods devils, as my great-granny's brother called them, and the baby eaters, as she called them, have been a thorn in my family's side since 1750, when we go over here from the old country. Even the Indians up in the hills tried to warn the white folks about them, but half my family that came over at the same time were mercenaries from Europe that skipped out on big debts, and they just didn't give a damn. From the stories I was told, they like to attack at night and during rain, especially in spring and late winter. We had around 20 attacks from 1804 to the big flood of 1837, where we went from being very prosperous to having clothes that we were wearing and a hungry belly overnight. All the crops got flooded out. There were stories of man-eaters roaming around. My grandmother refused to let us outside without at least 2 adults watching us at all times. People said she was a paranoid old woman, but she had her shit together and knew damn right well it was in the woods. They attack moonshine stills to deal the mash and drink the booze stock you distill the shine from. They steal any animal they can carry off, small children. They will rip plants right out of your garden, kill horses to eat them. Horses are utterly terrified of them, and as good as dogs for spotting them, maybe better. Goats hate them too. My uncle had said they lived in these caves that were hidden under heavy brush and other objects. Huge-ass caves under the ground up in the Poconos. There was one less when they were done. In case you ask, you burn them out. Lots of kerosene, gasoline, and any solvents on hand, especially stuff like benzene, sacks of coal to keep them from jumping out, and plenty of men with shotguns, bars, shotguns, Tommy guns, dynamite. You set the place up like an arson, so the dynamite will catch when you light the entrance and the fire follows the fuel back. You take no chances with them. My uncle said the old man had poison in a big container that he dragged into the cave and poured everywhere. That shit was flammable too. He said there were dozens of the things in there, along with human bones and dead women. Lots of dead women. That bothered them bad. And it bothered my great-great-grand-uncle till he died in March 2001 at 105 years old. He said if I see those things to kill them with no hesitation or mercy. And he hated the Harry and the Hendersons movie. When this happened, he sent the surviving children in that house to family in Philly and out in Jersey for a while to keep them safe from retaliation. The last one seen was in 1957, 3 weeks before my grandfather went to the army. It flipped over a 1937 Ford truck. It was then ventilated by everyone with a gun. They burned it to the bones, then scattered the bones. These things would attack the engines too. Eastern Bigfoot are vicious monsters. Kill them where you find them. You are doing the human race a great service if you do. The reason the house went up so fast was from the booze they had stored in the root cellar till the next trip to Philly.
In the summer of 2002, my girlfriend and I were sleeping in my room. We lived near Evansville, Indiana. I stayed with my parents at the time. Their home was in the country and had ceiling windows all throughout the home. Around 2 a.m., my girlfriend woke up screaming and very scared. Immediately, I had to cover my ears and my eyes. A buzzing sound was coming from above our home. However, it was the light that made it unable to see. The bright, intense light filled my parents' 4,000 square foot home like it was the middle of the day. I was blinded by the light, and so was my girlfriend. We couldn't see anything and heard a very, very loud beeping sound and kind of buzzing as well. Now I was scared like never before. She was freaking out more. I told her to stay in the bedroom and I was going to check on my parents. She refused to leave me. The sound and the lights were very intense. I made it to my parents' bedroom on the first floor, without a ceiling window. I yelled in and woke them up. I said, "Mom, Dad, are you hearing and seeing this?" At about that time, standing at the door, the lights were gone, and the sounds also. They were gone in a split second. I went back upstairs and we spoke about it for about an hour, asking what in the world it could have been. One evening here recently, I had a dream that on that evening I floated out of my window, and it was during that time that my girlfriend woke me up. I guess I never reported it because it was too strange to report. I am not sure if I was actually abducted or not, but the image of me floating through my window seems pretty real. That is the only memory I have.
Summer of this year, scored a geology internship and spent a week of it doing paleo-mag sampling, working with my normal boss and his friend from back east. Sampling takes us further away from humanity than I've ever been. On the last day, we take our final samples along the slopes and the top of an elevated mesa. Have to hurry because a storm is slowly building. Washes crisscross the road on the way out. We would be trapped for days. No cell service for the last 2 days. Not a ton of food. 20 miles to the last place where we saw someone. I'm a little on edge. Get on top of the mesa. Feel like I'm on top of the world, very exposed, with darkening clouds above, both eerie and awe-inspiring. Boss and friend stop the truck and want to go on a short hike to examine the section. They start out. I refill my water at the truck, and they get a head start. They've hiked a short distance across a bare exposure of uneven sandstone. No trail, but I follow in the same direction I saw them leave. It isn't far to the edge of the mesa. Get 50 meters from the truck, climbing a rise. Sudden, very loud scraping sound as if a huge object is being dragged across the bare rock. Lasts for several seconds, seems to be off to my left. I thought the truck had rolled off the road or something. Can't even see a loose object bigger than my fist on the ground in any direction. I wander in that direction and can't find anything. Find boss and friend. Ask if they heard it. clearly a bit flustered. They look at me funny and say they didn't. Don't want to seem like a wimp and don't bring it up again. Starts to rain and we haul ass off of the mesa. I obviously felt exposed and it was very quiet, but it sure sounded very loud and not very far. I don't have any idea as to what it could have been.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel as more green texts will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.
Remember to check the Odyssey and Rumble pages for separate archives of previous broadcasts.